Hello there, fearfully and wonderfully made human. Welcome back to the Holistic Counselor Podcast. I'm your host, Diana, licensed mental health counselor, integrative practitioner, and founder of Through the Valley Therapy and Transform Mind Consulting and Coaching. Before we dive in, I just want to pause and thank you. This is actually the 86th episode, and each one takes me about 4 to 5 hours from start to finish because I want to bring you conversations that line up with the mission and vision of this show. I produce this podcast by myself, and I thank God for Dorian Duff, who has been my editor and publisher since episode 18. His support has been such a gift in helping me keep this going strong. Now, I get a lot of emails from people who want to be on this podcast. And while I'm honored by that, I take time to carefully vet who I bring on because I want to keep this space true to its purpose, breaking stigma, fostering healing, and creating a place where faith, science, and holistic wellness meet. I don't have sponsors yet, though one day I'll welcome a sponsor that truly lines up with this mission. For now, I do this because I want to offer encouragement and free tools for healing. What you choose to do with those tools is up to you. But my hope is that something shared here helps you take your next step. And if this podcast encourages you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend or please, please, please leave a review. That's how more people discover these conversations, and sometimes that's exactly what someone needs to hear. Now, let me introduce today's guest. Cathy Williams is joining us all the way from Australia, which I have to say, I'm absolutely love that accent. Honestly, I love all accents because they remind us that people come from all kinds of places and spaces, each with
Mm.
their own unique and beautiful stories. Cathy is the founder of Intuitive Self, and she's a trailblazer in body based healing and expressive arts therapy. She holds a master's in social science with training in somatic, movement, and expressive arts therapies. For more than 16 years, she's worked in community development around the world, in places like Nepal, Papua New Guinea, and I can't say that last country, Vanuatu.
Vanuatu.
Vanuatu. She's also a facilitator, trainer, and award winning author. Her book, Body Wisdom, A Guide to Connecting with Your Intuitive Self, weaves together creative practices, and compassionate guidance to invite readers into that same reconnection. So, if you've ever felt stuck in your head, burned out, or out of touch with your body, I think this conversation will speak right to you. Well, I hope it does. Cathy, thank you so much for waking up to be here because we had to figure out a time that it will work for both of us. So, thank you so much for being here, Cathy.
Oh, thank you for being so flexible with the timing. It's so beautiful to be here, and I'm so touched by the research that you've done to get to know me. I feel really seen.
Good. Yeah. Well, like I said, I vet out everybody that comes on here. I just don't, because there's people, everyone has intentions, and sometimes people are selfish intentions and other people aren't, or they just don't know, or they just don't line up. And, it's just how it is in life with human beings, right? And
Mm.
so, but when I read about you and I saw, because there was a list that was sent to me, a list, and I went through every single one of them, and then I'm like, man, Cathy, I really like her vibe, everything about her, just her story, and I know it sounds stalkerish, but honestly,
It's
it's
good to
like,
know each other. It's good.
yeah, all across the globe. I mean, this is amazing to, I mean, when I think about it, it overwhelms me that I'm going to cry because it's just, think about it, like something that beautifully connects us from around the world, but it's also something that is being utilized to hurt people as well. So it's like we get to choose how we use the things that are coming to us. Anyway, let's talk about you. I want to know about you, Cathy. Like your journey has taken you from international community work to movement and expressive arts therapy. So, what's your personal why? Why did you start doing this?
I love inquiries about why. Like, I feel like it's something that, especially in this field, and I've taken many different pathways and detours and always moved with what has emotional charge for me. That's my indicator of, oh, I need to go there. That's my intuition speaking to me. Oh, I feel something within me. I need to go towards that, whether that's a country or a project or a particular job. And coming back to my why has been really essential for remembering what I'm doing, what I'm about, and how I can continue to really intentionally live my values. So I think what it boils down to is connection for me. And that connection is vast. It is connecting to others, connecting to the land, connecting to cultures, and connecting back to myself and back to my body and my heart. I was studying a Bachelor of Arts in Media and Communications
Mm.
originally. And I had this idea that I wanted to be like a journalist. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent because I was so curious about people's stories, right? And in one of the classes, one of the media classes, I did my assignment on a documentary that was called Born into Brothels.
Whoa.
I believe it was a female director, and she went into 5 houses of children that were born into brothels in Calcutta and told their story over, I think it was like a 6 or 12 month period. It was a very long time ago that I watched this, so there might be some
Mhm.
discrepancies. But when I watched this documentary, I'm not sure if her intention was to, you know, tell the story of these children with the hope that maybe they would have a different pathway ahead of them if they got education or got access to other resources and other possibilities. But what we ended up seeing was that, the cycle of poverty is so embedded that they had a similar outcome to their mothers in what was ahead of them for their life. And there was something about that documentary that really stuck with me. And I felt that charge. I felt that charge and that drive to, oh, I don't want to just be reporting on these stories. I want to be on the ground with
Wow.
people and connecting with people. And so that's when I dived into wanting to know more about how I could get into working in the community development field.
Hmm.
And in particular in third world countries
Yeah.
and developing communities. And I've been very lucky to explore that for many years. Um, in my 20s, I worked in a variety of different communities for capacity building grassroots projects. And I absolutely loved my experience of that. But also, I started to question, what's my role in this work and as a foreigner, really. And what was I doing? What kind of impact did I have, in some areas, you know, for example, in human trafficking, there's always going to be a demand, so there's always going to be a supply. So I was
Yeah.
doing lots of projects and I got to the point where I felt quite jaded in the
Yeah.
industry, in the field.
I can imagine.
And I I came back to Melbourne. I went back to my mum's place. I had like some comfort food, some comfort Australian food,
Yeah.
and just really started to question what my role is in, in this place, and I knew that I wanted to work with people, and I knew that deep connection was the through line, and was that point for me.
Mhm.
But I didn't know what that looked like anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered movement and creative arts therapy. I went to a women's workshop where the facilitator had just come back from her Tamalpa training, with Anna and Daria Halprin, who are pioneers in California of this work. And Anna Halprin in particular, she's really well known. She's since passed, but she's a pioneer of embodiment and how she used creativity and performance, and how that was the avenue for connection between races, connection between communities. And she developed this work, this body of work that is now a training for people to do, where they self-explore their
Mhm.
connection to their body and their heart, and therefore to each other creatively.
Wow.
So I was introduced to this work through a workshop. It was like a 2-hour workshop
Yeah.
in my local hometown. And
From California.
she had just done the training in California and come back and was fresh off the training
Yeah,
and
yeah.
wanted to offer this work. So
Right.
it was very different to any traditional women's circle space where you have your talking stick and you share. It was very embodied. It was no words need to be said. How do you feel right now? Use this space
Mhm.
to express the story in your body.
Yeah.
And the story in my body at the time was a feeling of confusion and helplessness in what my path forward was going to be. And I lapped it up. I loved it. I loved shaking my body and moving what I actually couldn't put into words, but it came out through the dance, essentially.
Mhm.
And I went up to her afterwards and I was like, "What is this? I need to know." So that was back in 2012,
Wow.
and that set me on my path for seeking out teachers and mentors and any training that I could find on somatic movement therapy, on expressive art therapy. And it's that beautiful thing that when you are a student of this work, you are then using all of these beautiful healing modalities on your healing journey. And I got to experience the benefit of that. And I was like, this is it. This is how I can combine my love of people and community work with these healing modalities. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
So let's talk about these modalities because you didn't name somebody Halprin, did you say the name of
Anna
some
Halprin.
Anna Halprin? And so I want to know more because honestly, because now after I hang up with you, of course I'm going to go start researching these things because that's not my modality. This is why I love having conversations with humans that experience healings in different ways because our world is so big and we have to have this understanding. I do know what somatic healing is. Like tapping. I've had another practitioner come on where she does it with breath and movement but I want to know like when you say creative and dance. You said dance, correct? Like,
Yes.
is it movement where you just freely are listening to music? Is someone guiding you? Because I've done art, like from Art for Healing, which I think started in California, a practitioner, and I would take the classes, especially during COVID. And it was pretty cool. Like I even had very logical left brain people say, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And after 2.5 hours of being guided through the classical music and the art and the words, the emotions, at the end,
Mm.
they were like, "Whoa, this was really good." So I
It's
want to know,
effective. Yeah.
well, of course, because people forget, you have different personalities, you have the mind, the body, the spirit. we're holistic humans and we forget that, especially for us that live in first world countries, right? We forget that there's traditions out there that, like in the evenings near say a fire back in the days, right? The natives and stuff, what would they do? They would tell stories and they would jump up and down
Mm,
and dance and move and the lights. I mean, so there's so much. Science is catching up now, but it's also understanding like how did we lose ourselves and get so disassociated, right? I mean,
mm.
when you were just telling me about your experience of watching that documentary, which you named it, so I'm going to see if I could find a link to it so people can watch it. It's like trying to figure out that vicarious trauma. That's what
Mm.
wasn't it like partially like you were trying to do these things, trying to figure out, and this is something what I see a lot with the 25 and 35-year-olds that I work with here in Florida is that is
Right.
that they're so like that overwhelming feeling and they're listen, they're not meant to listen and watch things 24/7 like they're doing now. So that's why the anxiety and the depression and the disassociation and the vicarious trauma and the world's ending feeling and all this stuff, and they don't know how to connect. So tell me more. I want to know more about what you were talking about earlier of the create like maybe you could explain it a little more of the what, the how, maybe if there's the science behind it of like the connection and what do you mean by that? Because people that are going to be listening to this, they're going to be like, oh, this is woo woo. But I have to get them to understand
Mm.
these are studied things that have been researched and seen that it's worked, just like a lot of different modalities like EMDR or brain spotting. So please, the
Yes.
floor is yours.
So, somatic movement therapy is a framework where we recognize that the body is a resource. So, the body is not only a doorway to the present moment and to understanding our lived experience and our internal states, but it is the understanding that our bodies carry all of our experiences, good, bad, traumatic, joyful, and that our bodies can store emotional experiences. As a somatic movement therapist, the body is not only something that we track in our assessment, but the body is what we use for our techniques and intervention. So it's different to traditional talk therapy in that we do somatic check-ins. The processes that I will guide people through is to support them to be more embodied, to remember that they are in a body, particularly as you said in our Western society where the mind is given, it's on this pedestal, it is at the forefront. We live in a hustle culture where everyone is doing rather than being. And that's not to say that the mind is bad, but instead in this framework, it is advocating that the body, heart, and mind and spirit are all aligned, as you said, holistically, and working with that and nurturing those relationships. So, my approach is trauma informed and client centered. So, what that means is that the people that I work with, they have full agency. Everything, whether it's a one-on-one session or in a public group workshop, all of my guidance, all of my prompts and inquiries, they're invitational. So the client sets the pace. It's usually a theme or topic that is current for them. So even though they might have said on their intake form, for example, oh, I want to work with A, B, and C, it's actually however they show up and turn up that day, what is most present in their body, and using the body as an inquiry. Where is that tension? What is the emotion that's present? How does changing the body and changing movements change the psyche and how we feel? We can all understand that when we're feeling a particular emotional state, one that might be uncomfortable, when you physically move, and that doesn't have to be something dramatic, that can be stretching, that can be going for a walk, our emotional state does change. And so it's using the body to transform and transmute those emotions and not bypassing how we might be feeling.
Yeah. So how would you say you start with someone that is like, I am so disassociated at this time of my life, or I don't feel anything. I'm numb, and they're coming to you. What is, someone that, or let's start with that, someone that might not feel anything. How would you start with a client like that? Or what are some kind of tools that you know that you've been trained in to help somebody like that? And then we'll go to the opposite. Someone that their brain is going 1001 miles per hour into predictive productivity mode and they can't slow down, because those are the two opposites of that I see that people could get themselves stuck in. So how would you do the first one where if they come in and they're like, I'm numb. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually so common because I think that we live in a society that actually encourages us to numb and distract ourselves and disassociate. I also have my own lived experience of doing this, growing up in a Western society, and I'm very familiar with it. I The way that I begin working with people who are experiencing this is to really gently start with the breath as an entry point. So, the way that I've been taught, and this was by my mentor, Amber Gray, who is a specialist in working with torture survivors in particular. So, look her up as well. Amazing.
Okay.
Um, she taught me never to change anyone's breathing intentionally, but simply bringing their awareness to their breath. Even when you say breath, like I'm sure everyone now just really took a breath because we
Especially,
become aware of it.
oh, after 2020, hello. What was that all about? That was losing breath. That was losing a lot. But yeah. Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
on. You're right on. I do breath work too, and I've studied it like biblically. What
Yes.
that's the first thing that if you know the Bible and understand that that's what God put into a human, breath. And then we think it's woo woo or new age. Come on. I'm sorry. I get all.
Come on. It is our connection to the life force source, right?
Oh, yes, the energy. Yes.
So I invite them to bring their attention to their breath and remind them, it's really important to resource clients when they first come. And so I encourage people to see the breath as an anchor point, as an as a doorway to the present moment, and to simply become aware of their breathing, to notice the pace and quality of their breath, to notice any sensations in their body. And I feel like it's a really gentle way to start to acknowledge that they have a body,
Mm.
that they're in a body. And from this point of the breath, then being able to move out and noticing their connection with their body on the chair, on the sofa, on the floor, noticing those connection points, those contact points, feeling their weight of their body, and really presencing their body in this present moment, in this room. And from that point, depending on what feedback I'm getting from their body and how they are in that process,
Mm.
I would then move on to either a body scan or a body map.
What do you mean by
Different
that?
So different people have different learning styles. So I like to be really inclusive of that. Maybe some are more auditory, some are more visual, kinesthetic. And so a body scan is, again, bringing their attention to their whole body. So we often start at the crown of their head, and I will start to name different body parts as we go down
Wow.
to the feet. And if they are more kinesthetic, I encourage them to even bring their hands to these different body parts. So again, they have agency of what way they hold themselves, what way they touch themselves, if it's a light touch, if it's a stronger hold, if they want to bring in any movement with that, so maybe some rubbing, some patting, some brushing.
Mm.
And in that way, they're almost waking up and bringing their attention to these parts of their body that if they're rushing during their day or if they are, as we said, numb or disconnected, even if it's just a moment of consideration that, oh, there's my shoulder, ah, there's my elbow, and just
Right.
saying hello to the different parts of the body that carries us through our day. And if they are disconnected or if they have numbed particular emotional states, that they're able to start in this really gentle way that they are controlling. They're in control of the pace and the way that they engage with themselves here. They can start to feel, and then I just inquire about what sensations they might be feeling. There might be a tingling, for example. They might feel the warmth or the texture of their clothing. And then what I love to do, and this is when I can start bringing in some of the expressive art therapy pieces, is on a piece of paper. And I often have, colored pieces of paper and different pencils and pastels and textures. So there's a variety of choice.
Mm.
Is I get them to choose a colored paper and then draw out like a gingerbread person shape. And on that image of a body, note down in different colors and lines and shapes anything that they felt in that process onto the paper. So it's a visual representation of those sensations and feelings.
Mm.
And from that point, we can then debrief and discuss what might be there, what might be alive for them.
Right.
And of course, there might be like, oh, that was really difficult. I was challenged with this. Oh, the only thing that I noticed was such and such. And it is this inquiry point of, again, the body is giving us this feedback. What's there? What's there
Right.
that we can work with?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love that. So, okay, so the breath, and then you have other tools, and so the arts come in with, and I love that because they get to pick what they want. Like a color is a representation for them, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
And
And the other important part with that is that my role as a therapist and the facilitator is never to interpret what purple means for me on that day is very different to what purple might mean for them.
yeah.
So though that's where we can inquire, yeah,
Mm.
like, oh, was there something that drew you to that color? Does that color represent a certain feeling or emotion,
Yeah.
for example? And
Well,
it's getting them to make meaning of their experience as well. And it could be something that in the moment they're like, oh no, I just like that color. Or it could be something that, every session you're doing a body map, for example, and you see the changes, like, oh, you might see the changes, but you also might see the patterns of like, oh, you always use that purple for the body outline. I wonder what that might mean.
Yeah.
It's a playful, curious way to start to be in the body again.
Yeah. And what I've realized is that many of us that have had, um, I just learned this, Dr. Don Wood stuff. I'm trying to get him on the show, but emotional concussions instead of trauma. You know what I mean? Like these times since you're born, having these situations that have happened that get stored in the system, not just the subconscious, but in your body, right? Because
Mm.
sometimes, like, for example, a long time ago, something happened when I was about 5 years old. I forgot it got stored, but every time I heard an ambulance, there was something that happened, and at 47 years old, I found out what it was. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's like understanding that these things are stored. And what I love that you're doing, you're touching spaces that as we grow up to be adults, think about it. We're told no, that like you can't be silly or fun or enjoy yourself, or, you have to, especially in the Western world. It's like you got to be this
Mm.
adult, or tragedy happens to human beings at a very young age and our body remembers it. And so we disassociate so we can survive the tragedy.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that I realized when I used to work with complex PTSD clients or trauma work is that, and going through my own stuff. And, I would go to drum circles and I remember my husband would watch and he wouldn't participate, but he enjoyed seeing what was happening. And then when I was done, I was like, because it's music from the drum circles would play like some from Africa or from
Mm.
Native Americans. You see where I'm getting at? And you get it, Cathy. This is
Yes.
why I wanted to have this conversation because many people don't. And I'm trying to break stigma in the Black Indigenous people of color community for others too to understand,
Mm.
and in the churches or religion in general too, because sometimes what happens, we get so stuck in this narrow mindset of we're right and everybody else is wrong.
Mm.
And so to me, that's where a lot of trauma happens too, because people want to be loved, validated, understood, respected. And what I'm hearing with your work that you do is you give them a really safe space to do that, but not just the talk therapy, which, hello, that's what I do. I'm not putting it down. It works for some people. That's all they need.
Absolutely.
Right. But then there's others that are like, okay, I've been in therapy for 15 years now and they're not getting healing. So to me, I want to also know more about, you said body mapping and then you use music as well, correct?
So music is it can either be an accompanying sort of backdrop for our sessions, or it can be something that encourages and supports particular emotional states.
Mm,
So I get the pleasure of compiling all of these beautiful playlists.
okay.
Um, and so, for example, with my workshops or in one-on-one sessions, I'm a huge encourager of this is their time that they've carved out in their world to come sit in session or be part of this workshop. And I encourage them to whatever they might be feeling, whatever has charge for them, let's let that take the stage for
No matter
this
what it is.
for this contained period of time.
Yeah.
Let's get curious about that. And again, they're setting the pace of how much they lean in, how deep they go, how light or deep that experience is. But if that feels good for them,
Mhm.
if that is the most current and the most charged part of their body or emotion that's present, my belief is that there's something there. There's something there that, as you said, wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be validated. And the power of this work is that I know the experience of bypassing emotion, of numbing ourselves from that, of being scared to go there.
Yeah.
And I encourage and guide people through that, through getting more comfortable with inquiring into those places. But when we do go there, and when we give that emotion, that feeling, the stage, so to speak, and this opportunity, this space to be met. Oh, what's actually happening here? What am I feeling? What wants to be heard? There's something beautiful that happens because for so long it hasn't been given this space.
Yeah.
And it's showing up and it shows up in the body. We know that the extreme example of that is that it can show up in ill health. But in these contained, safe spaces,
Hmm.
we can inquire. And what I encourage with the music is let the music also be a holder of your experience. So with the background music, which is often instrumental,
Okay. Yeah.
mainly instrumental, it supports our exploration. It also allows us to um, park the thoughts, and often there's always a narrative, like, oh, I feel a bit silly, and oh,
Yeah.
how does this look? That narrative is present.
Yeah.
But I encourage people to sort of park that again, return to the breath, return to the current moment,
Right.
and feel into how the body wants to intuitively move. How does that, say they're working with the shoulder and tension in the shoulder?
Yeah.
How does that part of you want to just release a little bit, to stretch a little bit? What does it need? And find that the music creates an atmosphere where they can inquire further and deeper.
Yeah, and let it loose, and you're giving a well, this is what I say some because some clients come in and they're thinking that they have to please me, right? Or like because that's the story that they're coming from, and so I'm just going, no, you're actually paying me money to give you have a service for you, and this is it. This is your safe place where you can explore what you're talking about and we figure out what will work for you because honestly if I feel or they're not getting well after a certain I'm like we got to look into other spaces. I'm not one of those therapists that will keep them forever and a day just because they're paying me money, right? It's to me it's
Mm,
about the healing. It's
yes.
about the healing and then when they're doing well, then they go tell other people and then, hey, listen, and then I'll have another client. For you, tell me how long when you say you do a workshop, and is there different ages? How do you do your work? Like is it like, oh, for 6 weeks we do it and we meet six of us once a week or, one on one, or is it all of it? Like tell me more about your processes.
Yeah. So I've been running Intuitive Self since 2016. So it's
Mm.
taken on many different forms and shapes, and it's included a variety of different offerings. I used to work predominantly with children and
Mm.
teenagers,
Oh yeah.
and in the last few years have switched my focus to adults, and mainly women come to my workshops, but there are men as well. And I offer a variety of one-off workshops, which are anywhere between, 2 to 4 hours. I have run programs where it's weekly, so it's consistent, and we do a different theme each week within an 8-week program, for example. And then, of course, there's the one-on-one sessions. And the reason why I offer the variety is because people are still not as familiar with this work, with movement art therapy. So it's an opportunity for them to come and taste what the processes are like, see if it's for them, because again, it's not going to be for everybody necessarily. And what I advocate for is, I found my tools and I stand by them as pillars of my own healing journey. But that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other varieties of tools. And I just want everyone to be able to find what works for them in whatever season of life they're in.
Exactly.
So, in the one-off workshops, for example, there's usually a theme or an inquiry, and I'm able to guide them through a journey which usually starts with some body awareness. So, really dropping into the body, dropping into the present moment. And then I often start by using cards. So, I work with these beautiful soul cards
Mhm.
by an artist, Deborah Koff Chapin. And what I love about them is that it's all visual representations of different bodies and different colors and shapes. And I often lay these out in the middle of the room. And whatever people are coming with,
Mhm.
I encourage them to, is there a card there that's really drawing you? You don't need to know why, you don't need to know the meaning of it, but is there something that's standing out to you? And of course, there always is. There's always a card. And sometimes people are like, oh, that one. And people leap towards them like, that one's mine. I have to get it before anyone else gets it.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, that card, the imagery on that card might represent something that they haven't been able to find words to yet. But it is like, oh, that's the grief that I've been holding. That's the pain that I've been feeling.
Mm.
And sometimes, people are invited to share as much or as little in that group setting, particularly because, I mean, in the 8 to 10 week programs, it's the same closed group and we go deeper with each other and there's
Yeah.
more comfortability in sharing. But in those one-off workshops, I mean, generally speaking, people are pretty open, which is beautiful, but it might be people's first time, so they might not feel as comfortable.
Hmm.
And this is an entry point. So the card and the visual is an entry point to that inquiry, to what, as I was saying earlier, has charge for them. And then we enter this space where they become really aware of their body. They've got that image in their mind's eye. That's their inquiry point. And I guide them through usually about a 40-minute intuitive movement exploration.
And when you say that, is it you just telling them or saying, hey, now feel this? I mean, when you say intuitive movement, I would like to understand that a little more.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Sometimes I live and breathe this work that I
Yeah.
need to pause and be like, yes, explain yourself, Cathy.
Yeah, pretend I'm like first grade and just met you and I have no idea what you're talking about. No.
Yeah. So when it comes to intuitive movement, and I use this phrase because it is non-directive. So I see my role as I am facilitator and guide, but everything that I'm offering is invitational. And I frame it this way to the participants. So I say, I'm going to be peppering in different prompts and different inquiries. If they resonate with you, if you want to be inspired by that offering, I encourage you to lean into that. But if it doesn't resonate, just drop it, just let it dissipate. So the whole atmosphere is really to encourage deep listening to their body.
Mhm.
How does their body feel?
Mhm.
What does their body need in this moment? And what's beautiful for me is that I look around the space and you've got bodies that are lying there, rolling around on the floor. You've got bodies who are over in the corner shaking. You've got people who are moving fluidly around the room. You've got people stomping. Like everyone is encouraged to follow their body's lead in what they need. And that can be in response to the music, it can be in response to how they're feeling. But the prompts and inquiries that I offer are encouraging that deep listening and that relationship with tuning
Wow.
into what the body might need.
Wow.
And the music supports that.
Can
So,
can we talk about the music? Because I'm wondering, is it like a specialized megahertz music, or is it something that, as you were trained, they realized as they were, I don't know if they studied it and they've done this for so long that they realize these are the things or the sounds that might, because I've been trying to go deeper into that too and find someone to talk about either the science behind sound healing and stuff like that. So, like with your music, is it like what's it called? Bilateral or well, I forgot the name of it, but is it certain sounds or tones or nature sounds? Like, can you tell me a little more about the music?
yeah, of course. So, I guess my two main influences when it comes to designing a playlist and a movement journey
Hmm.
is, and I might get her name, I might pronounce her name wrong, but Dr. Marsha Leventhal,
Mm,
she is again one of the pioneers of dance movement therapy,
okay.
and she created sort of like a five-stage process, which was all about safety and all about that contained journey of a warm up. Then I'm going to forget what the five stages are, but there's five stages of gently going into a warm up,
Okay.
rising into a theme, like a major
Hmm.
point of inquiry, and then coming down again of like, if we're
Yeah.
thinking of a bell curve, coming down into a closing and integration.
Mm,
Similarly, Gabrielle Roth, who is the founder of Five Rhythms. So
okay.
she was part of a band, she made music, and then she created this embodiment movement process called Five Rhythms, which goes through a similar sort of bell curve journey
Mm.
of five different rhythms. And um, I'm going to
Well,
just
it's okay because if you named them, and then of course me and my buddy Chat GPT will research real quick and find links.
so the five rhythms are flowing,
Okay.
staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness.
Mm, okay. I love that.
So can you see how it's sort of, if
Mm,
flowing intuitively and
mm.
then more rapid movements are encouraged with the staccato and chaos, and this is backed by the music that is played,
Yeah, yeah.
then it flows into lyrical and then ends in stillness. And again, something that I was taught is that we're never really still, right? Because the breath, there's always going to be
Right.
movement in our body with the
And life
breath.
force is always moving because traditional Chinese medicine, if you understand that and understanding, right? It's like and all these points in our body and in our organs are always moving. We're always like, I feel our cells are always trying to heal itself. And it's like now you're opening up spaces with what you do for the body to do that and letting go of like some subconscious things because you're right. Like I've studied like neuroplasticity, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic. I mean, because I've been on this road to as a therapist for a long, long time. And that's probably why I'm like a holistic counselor because it's not like I'm shut down by Freud.
Yeah.
So like I love
You
that.
use so many different modalities and tools.
Yeah, well, well, like you said, intuition is something that I feel some of us that had a lot of trauma in childhood, we get that antenna. And sometimes if that antenna is not cleared out, you know what I mean? Or that system is not cleared out
Hmm.
to understand, and we're always trying to keep ourselves safe. See, I feel safe now. I feel everything, every emotion in the emotion wheel, which I'll put in the show notes because that's something I use a lot because I'm an online therapist. But it is to gather the information in your body and have that understanding that you're safe now. You're not back wherever that trauma or that emotional concussion happened. And you give people a place to come together, not only to connect with themselves, but it sounds like you give them connection to be seen and heard in every one of those spaces. And then I have a feeling after they're done with you and if especially if it's a group, that they stay connected, right?
What's really beautiful is that, you know, these are people who, and maybe they're regulars that they come um and this is their form of
Therapy.
creating sacred time to be with
Yes,
themselves.
yes. Like,
But what I love is that I always encourage, you know, this work is about deep connection with self, but it's also about connecting with others in a non-judgmental space where it's an environment where, you know, after the movement and then we do some art process, we can then spend time to be with our bodies and be with our art piece that we've created. But the encouragement is there to then, depending on how big the group is, you know, find a pair and debrief with them. And I have a particular structure that I offer for that debriefing so that there is safety and there is deep listening and presence for one another. Because at the end of the day, what I most know to be true is that we are all longing and yearning for connection, and there is power in being fully present with one another like we are now, being present with a stranger that you've just met in a workshop, but they are willing and listening to what you have to share about your experience, about what you've drawn on the page. And I really try to encourage everyone to be in that space of presence, be in that space of curiosity, because we're relationally healing through that process of we don't need to know this person. We don't even know their name or their story or what they do for a job, but they have just seen and witnessed a powerful shift
mm,
in their partner. And, you know, I do this work now, but I'm also still an ongoing student. And I know the power of those spaces where we're able to move freely and share openly. And it's saved me beyond belief of just the power of presence and being witnessed.
yeah, that's it. It's something that, and as you know, I am a woman of faith in the Christian faith. It doesn't mean, but I think all faiths healthy faiths, not high control faiths that are using it for fear and and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I'm talking about like has that understanding that it is about connection. We're trying to connect to creator, something higher and bigger than us, and we're meant to connect with other human beings and actually living things. Because when you talk about life force, like anything living has energy. I mean, we that creator has made. And so to me, like that yeah, like what you're talking about makes so much sense of if we try to truly understand who we are and search our own hearts and know our anxious thoughts, because that is something in Psalm 139. I start every episode with fearfully and wonderfully made because Psalm 139 to me is like if people were to start there, even if they don't know who Jesus is or who they don't have any beliefs, but understand the wording of that. And at the end, it says, search my heart and know my anxious thoughts because we're responsible for ourselves. And to me, the Bible's not supposed to be bullets or arrows to throw at others. It's actually a mirror for ourselves to really gather information in how to be a decent human being.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And it's so lovely to hear your interpretation of the intention, you know, that intention for that inner work and to be really self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what therapy is supposed to be. And I use the word therapy because even though you might not have this license, right? And I know there's people like there's coaches, but to me, I think we're supposed to come and help and you have a team, like me having my acupuncturist, but I also have my functional doctor, but I also have my pastor. And so do you see what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a community, it's a village, and that's what we're missing nowadays is this
Mm,
this village. of humans that actually care for each other, not this like I'm up here, you're down here, here's this, here's that, I'm in control, like, because it seems like it's like two different. You have humans that want to do the right thing for the people, no matter where they're
Mm.
from and where they're, what situation they find themselves in. And then you just have super greedy people. But then I have to sit back and be like, oh, I just judged that person. I want to not be like that. I don't want to be like that. Right. So I want to know about, because, that embodied social justice is a newer concept for many. Embodied
Mm.
social justice. And I was like, what is that? Oh no, are we going to have a part two? Like, but maybe we could touch a little on that, just a little of like, what is that? And then how would you explain it to someone that's never heard about that, including churches?
Yes. Okay, so embodied social justice focuses on how politics are embedded in everyday experiences. So it's not about necessarily putting the focus on external systems, but about how we experience it in our felt body day to day. So how the body experiences oppression, inequality, trauma, and how that impacts how we show up in the world, how we show up in our relationships. And what I loved about it, and I'm gathering that you got the phrase embodied social justice from one of the trainings on my website that I did. So what the training advocates for is that instead of social justice being a process that starts with our thinking minds, that it is an embodied activism which understands and forefronts the body as a resource, the body as, how do we feel in our body? How do we relate to other people in our body? It recognizes that um, our systems of oppression and trauma affects us physically as well as
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally.
Right.
So, very similar to themes that we've already touched on today, but it's urging people to be more body aware and reclaim our agency. So instead of it being something, justice being something that's out there, it's
Mm,
actually something that we practice. So how do we stay present for one another? How do we listen compassionately? How do we continue to care for ourselves in our bodies and like walk the talk, so to
yeah.
speak?
I love that. Yes. Walk the talk. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I mean that makes sense because I do living in South Florida. I come from a lot of cultures, and as you see, I'm a woman of color, and so I know during 2020 I was working at an alternative high school, and it was hard because a lot of these young boys, especially at these alternative high schools, would come in and they had so much anger, and they were watching the social media and the news, and
Mm.
so they would come in, and I'm like, we have to get that anger out of your body because if not, you're going to punch the teacher or the cops. Like I had to keep get them back to, okay, you have every right to be angry at this time, but where is the evidence, and how can we change the world without you going to prison or get jail or doing something? But you have the
Oh.
right to be angry. Like there is so much injustice out there in the world. There is.
Mm.
There is.
And I love that because you normalize their experience. They're experiencing it, they're seeing it, they're living it every day.
Yeah.
Instead of bypassing that emotion of anger, which, so often, and I experienced this as a child, anger was seen as bad. Anger was seen, that behavior was seen as bad and something that if you expressed anger, if you expressed that emotion, you were a bad person. And so when it comes to bringing the body to the forefront and embodied social justice,
Mm,
when we speak about these institutions and churches and things, it's like, okay, how do we actually presence how the body stores trauma and pay attention to which is what you did and what I would love more institutions in particular to recognize is that any behavior, what's
Mhm.
actually happening in the body? How do we recognize those signs of overwhelm or
Yeah.
disconnection or rage and
Mm.
support people through the body to self-regulate, to co-regulate, to acknowledge that we're all going to have different experiences and different ways of experiencing things
Yeah.
and to support them through it.
Yeah. No, and this is why there's some that like with football, they would go into football and they felt that's their connection. Or, I mean, I've had clients right here, and I don't have clients that come in person, but they come in, and I'll never forget. There was one time I could tell, like, you're right. Like, they're taught, many people are taught that anger and sadness are bad things. And we have to realize the range of our emotions and feelings are okay. That is how God made us. To
Mm,
me, in my belief system, Jesus Christ showed all of the emotions that humans go through. It was, he flipped tables, he was in despair at the, so it's like trying to understand, especially for those who claim the name of Jesus Christ. I got to get people to understand that those in the Christian, because that's what I know the most of. I mean, I've studied other religions and stuff, and I come from something else, but I just want people to understand that every emotion, like that good girl, like we have that oh, you got to be a good girl. You
mm,
can't. And so I have angry young women or women that come in, and I'm telling you, when they were coming in person, there was one time where I could tell she was angry. She did not know what to do with it. So I just quietly got some plates and a hammer and some garbage bags. And I'm like, oh. And I prayed real hard before I walked back into my office. And I said, write down everything you're feeling. And she was like, what? And she wrote and wrote and wrote on this plate all over. And I'm like, now get it out. And she just like did not know what to do with that. But you see, that's moving.
yes.
And after she just sat there and raged and raged and raged, and I let her have that, she cried and cried. And it finally it
Mm,
loosened out of her body. And that
yes.
I bet is what you see all the time, but without hopefully the plates flying all over. And thank goodness we had glasses and goggles because, but do you see like sometimes I get clients to go to rage rooms, there's stuff here.
Yes. So cathartic.
Yes. That or where they're journaling or the art or I mean there's just my young boys back in the day it's something called rap therapy where they wouldn't talk to me but they would write and write with their things and then they would perform it in front of me and
Oh,
I'm like, man, you need a producer. But no, you don't. Like, I'm like, I'm not trying to encourage more. I mean, I love rap music, but you know what I mean? Like, it was just
yeah.
their way to be able to express these things and not this traditional, like, one way. And it's a lot to do with trust. You got to
It's a lot to
trust.
do with trust. But oh my gosh, I'm like buzzing because I love all of those processes and all of those ways because at the through line with all of it is self-expression. It is the encouragement of people's self-expression with
Yes.
whatever way feels good for them, right? And like that, for those boys, love of rap music,
Mm-hmm.
their own words, they've got agency and they can reclaim their story. Like, how good.
Reclaim their story, Kathy. That's exactly what you do. And I try to do in the format that I've learned in the modalities, right? And let's just touch base now on your book because that's reclaiming your story. I have a feeling with the poetry. Or what was the name of your book again?
So my book is called Body Wisdom, a
Okay.
guide to connecting with your intuitive self.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about it.
I so this book, I'm so proud of this book, and it is continues to be a resource even for myself to return to remind me of who I am and my why.
Hmm.
But I really wrote this because so many clients and even friends, were having challenges connecting with their body, connecting with their heart, and connecting with their intuition. I remember a friend of mine, she was trying to decide about a job, and I remember asking her, "Oh, what does your intuition say?" And she was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean,
Yeah.
my intuition?"
Yeah. People.
And I realized that over time, over these practices that I've cultivated through my studies and through this work, that I have a really strong sense of self and a really strong connection with my intuition. But that's because I've worked hard at it, and that's because I've
Exactly.
intentionally
Mm,
connected with my body and heart.
right.
And I realized then that I wanted to share my experience of this work, and I wanted to relate to others through my stories. So what the book is it goes over 10 chapters. So there's an intro and a closing. So eight meaty chapters where every chapter starts with a poem,
Mm,
and it's beautifully illustrated throughout with a graphic designer called Grace Reckler, who is another woman of color. And I worked with her to design what I wanted to be a really visually vibrant journey,
mm.
because the encouragement was for readers to get playful and get curious about connecting with their body and their heart. So after the poem, I share some of the stories of my lived experience. So for example, the first chapter is about intuition. So how I came to be disconnected from my intuition,
Yeah.
and then how I started to get curious about how my intuition was speaking to me. And then at the end of each chapter, I offer a variety of different invitations and practices
Hmm.
that are this work that we've been speaking about. So it's, again, I want to be accessible to many different learning styles and many different entry points for people. So there's journal prompts, there's movement exercises, there's body awareness inquiries, and there's art processes.
I love that.
Yeah. I'll
Oh
send you
man.
a copy of the ebook after this.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm just wondering, is it on Amazon? Do you guys have Amazon? Listen to me. Look at how ethnocentric I am. Is there Amazon in Australia? I don't even know.
We do have Amazon in Australia. The best way to access it is on my website.
Okay.
And I've got paperback because I'm old school. I love to be able to hold the
Me
book and,
too. I
you know,
highlight, I write. Yeah, I'm the same way. All right.
little notes. Um, but it's also, for the auditory people, I made it an audiobook,
Oh,
and
wow.
for ease of access, I also have it as an ebook. And I'll send you a copy of the ebook. And what I love about what I did with the ebook is
Mhm.
that for the poems and for the invitations, there's a little speaker symbol next to those that you can press on with the ebook, and you hear my voice guiding you through the invitation, so that you can look away from the screen and participate
I
in the
love
invitation.
that. Especially because I know us Americans, many of us love the Australian accent.
Mm.
Wait, can
There
I
you
ask you a
go.
question and be honest? Do you guys like our accent?
I love any accent that's different to the Australian accent.
I always wondered that. I always wanted to ask people like from England or South Africa, like, do you like our American accents or not?
Yeah. And it's so funny because I think, and me and my daughter do this, but by accident. But
Yeah.
when we hear an accent we like, we
Mhm.
it's almost like we try to do
Have
the
it.
same, because we're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so, it's for us, it's like theatrical, like doing
Yeah.
something
It's
different.
respectful to me. I don't do it to make fun. I just love it.
Oh,
It's just something what do I say? Beautiful. Am I allowed to say sexy on my own podcast? I'm not sure. But, but it is. Anyway,
but it is.
Cathy, you know what? I could sit here and talk to you for another hour or so, but I want to be respectful to the listener and to your time as well. And I know my husband is probably coming home now and he's hungry. So
It's
I
almost
have
dinner time for you.
it is 7-Eleven right now. So before we say goodbye, is there anything you would like to say to the audience?
I have so enjoyed this conversation. We have deep dived in a variety of beautiful areas, which is what I'm all about, depth and conversation. So thank you so much for having me. I think I'd love to leave the readers with, just to encourage them that if this conversation has sparked inspiration, to follow that curiosity with connecting with their body more in whatever way feels good for them.
Mm.
And, I'm someone who, like I said, with that documentary that first sparked that curiosity in me to dive into community development work, I listen to those signals. I listen to how my body responds to particular things, whether I hear something or read something. And if that's been your experience through listening to our conversation today, I would love them to get playfully curious about following that.
I love that. Oh, by the way, I should have asked this before this question, but do you work with people online around the world or is it local? And tell me just a little bit more about that in case someone's listening that's in Australia that wants to work or do you have a place that they come to? Like tell me just like
Yeah, so I guess the beauty of what happened in 2020 meant that we were able to move our work online.
Mhm.
And yeah, most of my work is actually online now, though I do love working in person. But those one-on-one sessions I do online. So
Okay.
they go for an hour and a half, and I encourage people to get their own, art supplies and to be in a space where they can move comfortably and privately.
Hmm.
Um, but all of that can be done online.
I love.
And I also offer workshops, and there's a variety of an hour and a half to 3 hour professional development training workshops. So, for practitioners in the wellbeing space, if they're curious about how to weave this kind of movement and body-based creative modalities into their existing work with clients and groups, I
Hmm.
offer training in that as well online.
All right. Well, all that will be in the show notes, her website and everything that we spoke about today. And Kathy, thank you so much for being here. This was great. I loved it.
I loved it. Thank you, Diana.
All right. Okay, listener, and remember to please trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.